He's gonna be in the background. Okay. So do I start or okay? We're live. Anyway, what's going on? All right. Okay. Got a little confused there. Not your usual host. It's usually Ruben. He's got a little bit of a two fake. I'll give it like that. I'll just say it like that. He got a little two fake. So, but he'll be back next week, ladies and gentlemen. What is going on, man? This is the Houston Texans Roundtable. My first time hosting it. I'm pretty excited about it, but still the same faces as usual. Go ahead and introduce yourselves and let me know how y'all feeling about this game real quick.
Go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah, so I'm Garrett Williams, Houston Stressins, aka Texans commentator. Obviously the game sucked. I feel like I went through the mourning process during the game. Like once I realized it was out of reach, so I feel like I kind of recovered pretty quickly. And then obviously, listening to press conferences and whatnot from CJ and D'Amico, it kind of helped me feel better about it. But there's no way to sugarcoat it was a bad game, but I do think that the worries of most fans about that game aren't as bad as people think. I've been saying this reminder, it's only 3 weeks and it's only one game. And there's a lot of things in that game, different plays here and there where things could have changed. And then, again, it's not an excuse. We got beat up and down the field, but on top of that, it was one of those games to where it just wasn't our day. You could tell, like every little thing that could have gone wrong went wrong. Every little bounce that could have gone a certain way went their way, and we can get into all that. So, I'm basically am like acting like the players. I'm just flushing it and moving on, and I think we're fine. And I think it stings because of the offseason we had. We all had super high expectations, and I honestly say this. It might sound kind of corny, but obviously it's good for the players to get humbled a little bit to like wake them up. But it's really like that for fans. I know for me myself, like I needed to check myself. I was getting kind of up there. Like I'm still optimistic, but I think it was good to kind of bring it back down to earth just a little bit. So
Yeah, man. This is AD from the H Town Rundown podcast on all socials. So my thoughts on this game is I'm pissed. I'm pissed. I'm not satisfied with yeah, you're right. Which one? Is he talking about me? Oh, thank you.
all three of them.
um but I'm definitely pissed off about the game because like Garrett just said, my expectations are through the roof with this team. I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. You don't do the things that they did this offseason, bringing in the players, making the moves, making the trades, doing all the things that they did this offseason to put this on film and show up and kind of not show up at all on Sunday. So after watching film, there are things to be positive about and to move on from, but there definitely are things that need to be worked on, especially if I know it's a long season, but especially if you want to make it to the Super Bowl or even the AFC Championship game, it's a lot of things that need to be corrected for us to even make it that far.
Yeah, that's a great segue actually to the question I have. I know the Texans obviously 34-7. It wasn't pretty, and Garrett, you harped on some of the hype around this team. AD, you've mentioned a little bit of it too right now at the end. Were our expectations a little too high for the Houston Texans? It's a video I had dropped earlier today. I've kind of wondered that, just considering everything that's been going on through 3 games. It hasn't been what I hyped it up to be. What all of us kind of hyped it up to be. We kind of hyped it up as, this is the Houston Texans, and on paper we're gonna be winning some games, and we're gonna be, even in our losses, I thought we'd be super competitive. And the Vikings said, no, that ain't happening here. How y'all played these last 2 games, it ain't happening here in Minnesota. And it wasn't so pretty. So that's the question I'm going to ask y'all. Was the expectations a little too high on the Texans? And as of right now, through 3 weeks, there we go. I got through that. Through 3 weeks, are the Houston Texans, are they a bit overrated?
I'll go first. I guess it depends on what everyone thinks the expectations were. We know they were high, but I don't think they were. If anything, just a little bit. But as I alluded to earlier, it was a good kind of reality check. And honestly, you'd rather kind of have these humbling experiences in week 3 as opposed to week 9, 10, 11, 12, something like that. So I don't think we're overrated. I think we're still right where we need to be and want to be. We're still 2-1. I think I want to say we have like an 60 to 80% chance of making the playoffs, which is all you can ask for, really. And again, like obviously the fashion in which we lost is tough, but I don't want to keep sounding like an excuse maker, but I didn't touch on this earlier. But I mean, the defense we played that early in the year in that environment, and the biggest thing, my biggest key going into that game was communication with the O-line, and that was the biggest issue in the game. We had pressures, the run game didn't work, we had the freaking penalties that were killing us. And honestly, that was one of my biggest concerns going into the season this year, walking away from that Ravens game. It was the same thing. They moved the ball decently in that game, but they kept shooting themselves in the foot from, procedural stuff. So they say they're getting that fixed. We'll see. I'm still optimistic, but I would say if they're a little high, if they're too high, it was just a little bit. But I think we'll probably go on a run here, and it's going to be right back where it was, in my opinion.
I mean, I agree, but I have a different take on it. I don't think the Texans are overrated. Have you seen the rest of the NFL? Have you seen the way this season is going? The Cincinnati Bengals are 0-3. The Cincinnati Bengals were right up there with us as far as challenging the Chiefs for the AFC Championship and being an AFC champion going into the Super Bowl. And they look like they have some major issues. The Baltimore Ravens are 1-2. Barely snuck out of Dallas with the win. So I'm just going down the list of the AFC contenders, and you're looking at it now, and it's like, okay, the rest of the AFC South: Jacksonville 0-3, Tennessee 0-3, the Colts 1-2. Honestly, should be 0-3. Like the way they played that game, they really shouldn't have won that game. So you look at each division. Cleveland is doo-doo. Pittsburgh, who everybody thought should be last in their division, is 3-0. The Chargers 2-1. All these teams that people counted out are kind of on the uptick, whereas the so-say contenders, top of the league teams, are kind of dwelling down. And here we are as coming into the season as a top of the tier league, top of the tier, in our AFC. And here we are at 2-1, right there in the thick of it, right there at the top. I think if the playoffs started today, would be the third seed in the playoffs or something like that. So I'm not concerned in that part as being overrated. I think we're right where we were supposed to be going into the season in the way this season is playing out right now.
I do want to add one thing. So, like, obviously our aspirations were like a Super Bowl contending team. And, if we're still looking in that lens, I actually went back and I was wondering, like, has the Super Bowl team had a demoralizing loss like we had and still won? And the answer is yes. And it's about half of the teams in the past decade have had at least one loss of like 20, 30 points. So, I mean, it's not abnormal. I know, like, I've heard conversations, and I agree, like, that, as the season goes along, we could really go on a run, but that'll always be in the back of our head, like, oh, that one road game in Minnesota. But, there's plenty of teams that have done what we did and still, went on to reach their goals like we have. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Before I get further into the episode, this episode is sponsored by BetUS. Take advantage of BetUS. They are giving you 150% bonus on your first deposit, powered by BetUS, right? That's what I said, yes. Right?
Yeah.
I think I said it. I don't know. Whatever. 150% bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. Throw some bread on us in the game against the Jaguars. There's been implications that this could be a bounce back game for the Houston Texans. Before I get back into the Vikings, how are y'all feeling about some of the conversations today around DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud, and the crew? A lot of it kind of feels like maybe there were some lashings by DeMeco Ryans and the Texans to some of the players. We all know what the problem happened in the Vikings game, and we'll get to Laremy Tunsil in a little bit. But what do y'all think about, and AD, go ahead. What do you think about the implications that this could be possibly a bounce back game for the Houston Texans?
It's definitely a get right game. The Jacksonville Jaguars are down bad, especially on defense. They are missing a lot of players on their defensive side of football. They just lost Aluakon who's going to be out for a few weeks. Their secondary has been decimated already. So there's a lot of advantages for us to take advantage of. I know that's a lot of word conundrum, but there's a lot of things for us to take advantage of on that. And honestly, this is a get right game for the offense. And defensively, we should be okay because they still got Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. So it's definitely a get right game for us. And you mentioned about D'Amico and the tongue lashings and everything like that. Definitely think that D'Amico laid into the team immediately after the game. I don't even think they're going to do the iron sharpens iron part after this game, because I think it was some words said in there. My only concern about that is that one certain player is he going to listen and take heed to it, or is he going to be nonchalant and careless like he has always been since he's been in the league? And everybody knows who we're talking about.
Yeah, man, my boy AD was spitting. Like, you basically said everything that I think. I mean, this definitely is a get right game. There is a mild concern, the fact that they're against the ropes and 0-3, about to go 0-4 and basically have their season done. But on the flip side is they're 0-3 for a reason. They're not very good. I do think that Bills game, I think the Bills are obviously pretty good. I don't think the Jags may be as bad as it looked in that game, but like AD alluded to, they're decimated by injuries, especially in the secondary. And then even then, to begin with, I don't think their secondary was that great to begin with. But that is, I feel like going into every matchup we have, if I kind of compare like positional groups, like who may have the advantage. And every week on paper, I look at it, it's our receivers versus the other opposing team's secondary. But something I noticed, there was a graph talking about like a breakdown of a defense and what percentage they run certain coverages. The Jaguars run cover one, which is man with the high safety, 51% of the time. And so people can say, like, obviously we've struggled against two high safeties, and that's the whole debate about Bobby figuring that out. But people can say, oh yeah, they'll just change the coverage. A lot of teams just don't. If you're a coordinator and run a certain type of defense, you don't just switch it up. I mean, and if they do, they're not going to be that good at it. So either they're going to run zone, which we're also good at, and they're not used to, or they're going to run man, and we are going to absolutely light them up. But I also am concerned too from this aspect that, for me, just a win is fine. Obviously, I want the offense to get the get-back game and put up the numbers. But I feel like, if somehow this becomes a tight, stressing game, a lot of fans are still going to be upset. But I'm optimistic that's not going to be the case. At the very least, if it is a close game, it might be a shootout. But I don't see how we don't cover the spread at 7 on BetUS. And, it's definitely a get-right game. And it can't come here soon enough, honestly.
Let me say something real. I see it in the comments. Magnificent Merker said CJ needs to get right game. He's kind of got a sophomore slump going. If averaging, if I'm not mistaken, 240, 50 yards a game, what does he have? 4 touchdowns now? 4 touchdowns,
2 interceptions.
and then the 2 interceptions. I don't consider that a slump. Like, he's still on pace to throw over 4,000 yards, like 30 touchdowns, and less than 10 interceptions. So, like, I'm really trying to figure out if CJ's sophomore slump is that type of season, then shit. we're in for a long ride. Pause.
Yeah, he had one bad game against probably will at the end of the season be a top 5 defense on the road. And another factor too is Brian Flores' defense. Obviously, we know about the simulated pressures and confusion. They had just played a San Francisco offense before that, so he kind of like had the playbook on how to disrupt them. And then we had injuries as well. But yeah, and then one of the picks he threw was a tip pass. He made the right read. It was kind of like a fluky play
by the defense, man.
And he was moving the ball. I mean, we had yards. We outgained them in the game, but really, like, in my opinion, a lot of the 3rd and longs that we got into were due to a couple were from sacks, and a lot were from penalties, and a couple were from running early on early downs. But I mean, and he converted 2 or 3 first downs that got called back. So, I mean, he played good, but he's not having a slump by any means.
Right.
Speaking of penalties, speaking of tongue lashings, and speaking of Oh, Laremy Tunsil. We don't bury the lead on my YouTube channel. We're certainly trying not to bury the lead here on the Houston Texans Roundtable. Laremy Tunsil was the topic of conversation amongst all of social media here in Houston. I'll just simply put it as this, and Garrett, go with it, man. Start off. What were your thoughts on Laremy Tunsil and the offensive line in this game against the Vikings?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, that was on offense. My biggest key was communication with the O line, given the fact that they hadn't been doing a good job of it early on. You know, in the first game against the Colts in the Stroud House, it was loud. They struggled with that, and you could tell when we gave up 2 or 3 sacks from miscommunication, where guys just came scot free. And then obviously we had penalties in that game. So for me, it was a big issue, and it went 1,000 times worse than I could possibly imagine. I was optimistic we would kind of get it figured out, but you know, several of the sacks were guys just getting beat, but several of the sacks were miscommunications again. And a lot of it's just from simple stuff that D lines are doing certain stunts, and it's not like innovative stuff, you know, and they're having a hard time handling it. And I hate to admit, like I've always thought that crowd noise was BS, but it did play a major factor. So our whole operation with the silent count is terrible. I mean, I don't know what we're doing. I know a lot of teams kind of do the one where the guard will look back. I don't think we do that. I need to look at that. But a lot of teams that do that, that's the most effective way. Like, yes, you may give them a little bit of a jump on the snap, but at least all your guys know when to do it. Like, if you ever notice that in a lot of away teams, the guard will look back to the quarterback, okay, we're ready, and then he'll tap the center. I don't know. I assume we do that, but I feel like I don't notice it. But yeah, as far as the penalties though, like LT is a guy I kind of was defending him a lot prior to this game for these false starts. I was in the boat of like, hey, I'll take a couple of false starts here and there for elite blindside protection for my franchise quarterback. But watching this game was the first time I was like, I can't defend this man. Like that one drive where we had 3 consecutive false starts and then a illegal formation by Tunsil being off the ball that got declined. That's when I just lost it. I was like, okay. So whenever someone who's positive like me and tries to like give players the benefit of the doubt, like initially flips, that's when you know it's bad. So, if he doesn't get it right this game, then it's like, oh shit. Like, I've been hearing a lot of like people like being upset and rightfully so, and like talking about cutting or trading them, like being dramatic. To me, that's crazy. But like, if he does this again next week, then there might be some validity to some of those talks.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta, really address the bald head, no eyebrow elephant in the room, which is Laremy Tunsil. Yeah, it wasn't just the penalties, and I know that that they got you stressing. That it really got you stressing. The penalties, but it was the lack of effort that just shocked the hell out of me. Like in run plays, the Cam Akers play that was highlighted on Twitter, where he spun around and did the spin-a-rooney and got 9 yards. He didn't have to do the spin-a-rooney if Laremy Tunsil actually gave effort on a block. It was another play where we got pressured because Laremy Tunsil literally just stopped blocking in the middle of CJ's drop back and just let the guy go after CJ. And I'm like, what's really going on with you, brother? Like, are you okay? Are you all right? Is something going on? I know your brother got beat up in the stands, but did you hear about it mid-game? You got upset, or what was really going on? Because like he, as always, as we noted, he's always been a penalty monster. Like that's just his game. I think he's had between 8 to double-digit penalties since he's been with the Texans every year. Outside of the season that he, people want to say he quit, but that he sat out for the season with the injured hand. So those things are an issue with him, but this game was just on another level. Like I think he had 2 the first game, 2 the second game, and I'm like, okay, that's a trend, and then you end up having 6. So it's like, oh, I can you see my 2, I'm gonna top you. I'm gonna make you realize, hey, here I am. But I like the illegal procedure penalty. Like I understand the gripe about it, but I don't accept the false starts because he had 3 illegal procedures and 3 false starts.
But even then, like after you get one, that should be it. You shouldn't get multiple, you know?
Right. And we were looking at the film. You look at the wide view, the tight view, or the wide view, and you literally see that like one play, the ball was on the 33-yard line, and Tunsil's on the 30. Like, there's no way you're going to be line. Like, how do you not see
Even
that?
if you've been getting away with it, once you get caught once, okay, these guys don't play. I can't do what I normally do. And if that's the case, you're supposed to just check with the official, bro. If they say you're good, you're good. You know.
That's exactly what I was saying. Is you can't tell me you weren't warned by the referee at the very least. Like the ref will always be like, "Hey, man," like he'll let you go by one, but he'll tell you after the play or usually before, "Hey, you lined up a little too far back. Scoot up next time." You know, like you can't tell me the ref didn't tell you something. What really irks me is you can see there's miscommunication. You can see there's some cadence issues when the sequence between Scruggs hiking the ball and we saw Titus Howard and him bobbing his head up and down looking like a damn fool, and it just didn't look pretty at all. And what pisses me off is these are so minor mistakes that guess what? You could fix in training camp. You could fix in mini camp. You could fix in preseason. And guess who doesn't show up to that?
Message
number 78. Interesting. Because he doesn't show up for preseason, doesn't show up for anything that's voluntary. He ain't showing up. He barely show up for to give signatures out, man. Like, come on now. I mean, I seen Kendrick Green with a bum knee go out there and stand for the fans, give them all signatures. It's very rare I see Laremy Tunsil out there doing that.
I don't even think he went and signed any autographs.
Not this year.
This year, like
not this year.
Last
year he did it one day. I got lucky.
Yeah.
One thing on those penalties, like I was wondering, like I guess like his argument or any tackle's argument of like as to why they get caught with false starts or they get caught with lining up so far back is like they're looking for every advantage. But like I wonder like if you take away like what he has been getting away with, like how much worse it makes him. Like I guess like is the risk worth the reward is what I'm asking. Like, you know, him inching back so far and then him trying to get that initial step, like is that worth, like are you still going to win your pass up regardless if you line up where you're supposed to and just wait and get a slower start? Like, so I guess that is like my line of thinking, you know, like how much worth it is it to risk those penalties?
So the question that I had, I think that most Texan fans have is that you're this elite pass protector.
There we go.
You are regarded as one of the best, you know, some would say top 2, top 3 in the league as far as pass protecting left tackles or tackles in general. There's like you're athletic. Like he's an athletic, mobile, you know, guy. There's no reason to cheat. Like you don't have to cheat. And if that's the case that you have to cheat, are you really top 3, one of these top tackles in the league that you have to get that much of an advantage every single play, every week on lesser guys? You know, I could see even last game against the Bears, I can see if he was going against Sweat. Sweat was giving Titus the work. Like, who was Tunsil going and he was still jumping and trying to get that edge? And it's just like, it's a little frustrating because it kind of paints the broader picture of, are you who you say you are? And that's the question that may needs to be answered, because Gary, you talked about, you know, the people talking about trading him and benching him, cutting him. And I want to clarify, I think a lot of the benching talk got blown out of proportion because I think people were saying bench him in that moment.
Yeah.
Like to set an example.
There's an argument for that, especially once the game was like kind of
right. You know, like when Davis came in, I mean, of course, like, hey, let Blake Fisher get some playing time or something just to see where he's at. But
that's still a tough call by D'Amico though, because you can cause a lot of issues. But anyways,
yeah, I mean, did you see the comments after the game? I don't think that leadership from the captain is rubbing off too well. You may need to nip it in the butt. But you know, like, and then, you know, the trade talk, like, you're supposed to sell high. You know, Kansas City sold high on their tackles, even though they weren't great tackles, but they got decent compensation for both of them I think it was Orlando Brown they traded or something like that. And then forgot the other tackle that they traded, who was their franchise tackle that they drafted number 1 overall. What was his name? Fisher? I think it was.
Oh, yeah, from Kansas City a while back.
Yeah, right.
Eric
And
Fisher?
so, yeah.
Oof, that's a pull.
Right. But they
Ooh.
traded him and they traded high.
Yep.
And I asked this question, on my podcast, and I asked it during the week. Can you name me who Kansas City franchise left tackle is? Or can you name me who Kansas City's either franchise tackle is?
Jawan Taylor? Is that it? No?
I think he's
You want
right.
to call him a franchise tackle?
I mean, he's there.
Hey, we're not hearing his name. That's sometimes it's a good name when you're not hearing his name.
No, he's the reason why we even talking about these illegal procedure penalties in the first place.
That is true. You're right.
Like he is the catalyst for that call, period. But he's not a elite guy. He's really just a jag. He's just a guy that's decent. So like there's ways to go around it, and then now there's a narrative about George Fant. Like, did we lose much with George Fant? Or did we, did we lose? Not did we lose much, but did we lose, period? Losing George Fant. So those type of conversations don't happen if Laramy's elite as he says he is.
Well, I think we'll be all right. There's no reason, it's like in this moment now, and we have all this time to fester on it, like all those penalties. It's like, man, but there's no way he continues to be that bad as far as that stuff goes. But to your point earlier, how we were talking about the quote unquote cheating.
Don't put it in the atmosphere.
But in my opinion, there's no way he repeats that. And it's the only way I can justify in my mind, and it alludes to you saying too, the effort, he just wasn't there mentally. I don't know what it is, still in preseason mode, just thinking he can roll out there, or he's just out of it. Who knows what it was, but more when we're talking about how basically you quote unquote cheat by getting further off the ball or get a head start, if that's your game, but now you've had 2 or 3 games this year where it's been really bad, you need and like you mentioned, if you are an elite athlete and tackle, then you just go back to square zero and don't cheat at all. And then until you can kind of work your way back and maybe find whatever that balance is to get you back to where you are. Because evidently whatever you had done before, now you haven't found that little finesse, that little window, and maybe a little game of cat and mouse, but he can start from ground zero and get no penalties and then slowly start to go back to that and then find the sweet spot. So.
Yeah. I agree.
Laremy Tunsil had a quote, and AD, you had mentioned it a little bit. Laremy Tunsil's quote here via the Texans podium: false starts. I want people to understand we all have to be on the same communication. I'll take accountability because they're calling my name, but it takes all of us. That is the captain for your Houston Texans. Your thoughts, AD?
Give me that Captain patch off. Go ahead and snatch that off of there. And then go ahead and pass it around. Hell, give it to Kenyon Green right now, because Kenyon Green is more of a leader than Laremy Tunsil is right now as far as playing on the field. It just goes to show the lack of accountability, man. You can throw that word accountability in that quote, which I think he did. He used the word I'll take accountability, but you're saying it as if it's not my fault, but you know what? I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take the L for everybody else. But it's not my fault that it's, I'm false starting or I'm getting these illegal procedure penalties. It's the referees, it's this, and that. Said that in another quote about the referees. They're targeting him and this, and that. As a veteran, I think Laramy's in his 9th year in the league, if I'm not mistaken. 8-9 years, something like that. And you're not taking ownership of a problem that's clearly your problem. That is to me a indictment on the team, that you're going to allow that for him to even say that. Where is the accountability from the team standpoint? Your cohorts, I know Titus is your boy, but come on, Titus, you got to come a little bit stronger than that. You got to hold, and that's, I said it earlier, the tweet I put out, everybody needs to be held accountable and their feet need to be put to the fire. Like that goes from top to bottom. So if Laramy's not going to take accountability, then now it's a Bobby Slowick and D'Amico problem. Bobby Slowick because he's the OC, D'Amico because he's the head coach. You have to make him take accountability or make an example out of him so that it doesn't filter down for the rest of the roster. Because right now, you're showing the rest of your offensive line, you don't have to be accountable. You can mess up, you can have these penalties, you can have lack of effort, you can do all that, and it'll be okay as long as we're winning games. Or as long as CJ gets his stats, or as long as, it looks, okay. That's not acceptable at all. That goes to Chris Strausser, as well, for letting him, these are grown men. You're not allowing them or letting them do anything, or you're not a parent, so you're not any of that. You're not gatekeeping these guys or, holding them hostage or anything. But accountability starts from the top to bottom. If Laremy can't take accountability on this game, where it's clearly he had the issue, then there needs to be a one-on-one meeting. Like, hey, what's really going on? What's the problem? Let's figure it out. And that goes back to the point of benching him during the game. If you bench him during that game, the example is set. This is not acceptable. Because let me say this, as much as Kenyon Green has been great this year, if Kenyon Green had the game Laremy Tunsil had, guarantee you Kendrick Green would have been in the game at some point. We can say Drew Scruggs. If Drew Scruggs had the game with a multitude of penalties, because he had a few of his own, but if he had the lack of effort and the continuous penalty issue that Laremy Tunsil has had, Kendrick Green again would have been in the game at center. So like, you can't sit up here and make an example of these young players and then allow a veteran like Laremy Tunsil just to go ahead and not a big deal because he's Laremy Tunsil.
Comes off as hypocritical to the players.
Exactly.
You got to be consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with AD. Like that. Those comments. I wish I would have watched the actual video of it, but I mean, the transcript of the quote. I mean, I'm sure whatever context, it still doesn't sound great. I mean, like y'all mentioned, if you're the captain, you can't do that. Like, maybe potentially word it better or wait to bring it up later, or just don't say that at all. I mean, D'Amico never, puts blame where he takes it all himself. CJ's the same way. So there is comfort in knowing that we have CJ and D'Amico, in there as leaders. And AD, you talked about it being addressed. I'm sure it was addressed. And, the talk about, potentially benching him. I would imagine if he came out in this next game and did some similar stuff and didn't show improvement based off of just, these mental errors, basically it's just focus and discipline. If he comes out and does the same thing, I wouldn't be surprised if something that does happen to send a message. He probably, and to your point about, benching him versus if it was a younger player that would have gotten benched, I agree. And I get the reasoning. If you're like a vet, I'm going to give you a little bit more slack. But at a certain point, you can't do it too much as a head coach because then it's not consistent and fair. You're sending the wrong message. This guy gets favor. Players want to all be treated the same no matter their stature. And it is the NFL, so you get that some players might get a little more favoritism, but and different teams are different. There are teams that don't care and they'll let their superstars do what they want, and other guys not. But like my sense from the team that D'Amico's making, that's not the type of team that we have. It's a team. It's no one's above the team. And I think he'll say that too. So I am confident that was handled in-house with D'Amico and probably even CJ, honestly. I really have a lot of comfort in CJ being the leader, even though he's probably 10 years younger than LT. I guarantee you he's had some good positive talks with him to get him locked back in and hopefully, penalties, quotes, all that stuff doesn't happen. But like his actual point is actually probably valid too. I don't know how many of those false starts were and weren't his fault. I would say maybe one might be Drew Scruggs' fault. I didn't watch the film, but you also have the track record of having false starts throughout your whole career. So even if there was one or two that game, it's like, bro, this has been an issue, and this is not the time for you to defer blame,
And I tried to give Laremy his, benefit of the doubt because I did put week 1 those 2 false starts, at least one of them on Juice. And the same thing with week 2, I put it on Patterson It was like you said earlier, Garrett. It's a communication thing that the offensive line has to work on. But at this point, when it gets to the total of 6 penalties in one game, that's more than just one
Like in your
player.
head,
Like,
bro.
yeah, it's like like you. And in that play, that sequence we talked about, I think it was 4 penalties total, and I think 3 of them went on Tunsil, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
During
Yeah.
that sequence, the fourth one you said was
Mhm.
on Titus, but Titus that one got declined, but the other 3 won on Laremy. So somebody fact check me if I'm wrong or not, but that's unacceptable. Like, you literally put 15 yards on a play. I think it was 3rd and 4, and you by yourself made it 3rd and 19.
I'm starting to think like the more we talk about it, like maybe like was he just getting in his own head after a while? Like becomes like an obsessive, like like a sports psychology thing, like almost like in baseball when you get the yips, like all of a sudden you just forget how to throw. Like hopefully it's not something like that, Maybe it was just in that game and it's gone, but like that's the only way you can try and justify it, I guess, or make it make sense. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know. Go ahead.
Ruben ain't here tonight. And the comment section just thinks they could just say whatever the hell they want. The comment section and whoever's running the AFC South Roundtable as well, they think they could just say whatever the hell they want. They think they could just ask questions here and there. They think they could just get away with shit. All right. That's what y'all want to say. Yeah, that's what y'all want to go with. Hey, by the way, let me look at the rest of the AFC South real quick. We got 2 0-3 teams, and we got one team that's 1-2. A 1-2 team that struggled against the Chicago Bears. Now, yes, did the Texans barely beat the Chicago Bears? Absolutely. But they also dominated in that game. They dominated. And the Colts did not. They let Caleb Williams run up and down the goddamn field. And Ruben is not hiding. Ruben is in some he got himself a little too fake. That's what I'll say. And Buddy over here just got the Texans name all in the comment section. He's mentioning more about the Texans than the damn Texans fans in the comment section. I mean, look, I know what it is, and I'll tell y'all what it is. We drive views and we drive attention. That's what it is. Everyone's got to talk about us. Everyone's got to talk about the Houston Texans. You know why? Because we run this shit. That's why. Damn it, you want to talk about how, oh no, the Houston Texans weren't a good team last year. Well, that good team last year whooped your ass in week 18 and took the damn division. And then went into week 1 and said, you know what? It was so good. We'll do it again. We might as well rename Lucas Oil the damn Nico Collins Stadium while we're at it. If Gardoki wants to do exactly what he wants to talk about, then tell me the truth. Tell me how you feeling about AR5. Tell me how you feeling about the rest of this division. Don't be looking at us like that, man. We at the top right now. All right. And sure, we can talk about all these offensive line issues and everything. But at the end of the day, the offensive line, this is their second game fully healthy. And I said this in one of my videos. I said it in the beginning. The offensive line could be a little shaky to start the season because they haven't had a lot of contingency. They haven't had a lot of continuity, excuse me. All right. And we don't get Laremy Tunsil to do the preseason and whatnot and whatever. And that doesn't help either at so far. But regardless, yeah. I'm gonna be talking a little bit of noise regardless, even though we're 2-1. But don't be talking noise at 1-2.
Oh, and let's not forget you got the meme master in Levis, and then you got the meme master in Levis, and you got the fake generational quarterback in Trevor Lawrence.
Snoring. Boy, put you to sleep.
Hey,
man, let's go out. Let's play with our head on fire, guys.
Look,
what? Come on, man. Hey, you ain't making me run through a brick wall. Come on.
Let me say this: the Colts fans are talking about us and everything. Don't you wish you had Gardner Minshew? Don't you miss Gardner Minshew?
That offense is pretty good.
That statement
right there.
Yeah, interesting.
That statement right there. That statement right there should just make you sit down and just shut up. Okay.
I mean, they want to talk about how we're falling apart. The only thing that's falling apart is the potential of quarterback with AR5. That's what's falling apart. I want to see how the hell that goes on. But without further ado, we're talking about the rest of the AFC South. Let's get into a little bit of this Jags game real quick. We talked enough about the Vikings. Let's do it like Garrett said, like the Miko and CJ. Flush the turd down the toilet. We ain't trying to look at it no more. It was ugly. It was disgusting. You got your ass whooped. Now you're facing the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'll say this. I got a video that I haven't edited yet. I'm still going to upload it. The Jaguars are 0-3. And they just came off one of their worst losses in franchise history. The Buffalo Bills did to them what shouldn't have been shown on TV. I mean, it was just that bad. Thank God the Commanders were playing that night. Thank God Jaden Daniels and the Bengals was so entertaining. Oh, my goodness. It was ugly to watch on Monday Night Football. They shouldn't show them again. The Bills beat them so bad. The Jaguars are 0-3. You're looking at a team that's coming to Houston that, look, man, they're playing desperate. Like, they're not trying to fall to 0-4. And obviously, I would say, I'm not there in Jacksonville, but I would say that there's a conversation around their head coach being fired and Doug Peterson. And if they fall to 0-4, I think that gets revved up to 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. It might get up to 11 real quick. If they fall to 0-4, you're basically out of the playoffs at that point, regardless of how early the season is. This is a Jacksonville Jaguars team that I think is going to be trying to play desperate and trying to get this win no matter how. No matter how ugly, no matter how they do it, they're going to try to get this win. How do y'all think the Houston Texans can circumvent that? We'll start with Garrett real quick.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I mean, the biggest mismatch in the game as far as position groups is our receivers. Even with Tank Dell out, you can insert, Mechie or Woods or whoever else it may be, or Hutch, and maybe rotate Diggs to the slot. We still have a massive advantage at wide receiver with their secondary. And then again, the fact that they run man coverage, and they can change it, but they won't be used to it. But if you stay in man, and then also too, I feel like I heard on the broadcast for the Monday night game against the Bills, like they were like bottom in the league, like 28th in the league, and like pressure win rates. Like their pass rush isn't there. Now they have injuries. You mentioned the linebacker they have, so their pass rush isn't great, and their secondary isn't great. So, passing game should be there. I'm not exactly sure how their run defense is, but we're also at home. I would expect our O-line to play much better. But the main key for me is through the air. I really think this is the breakout game for C.J. Stroud in the offense. So to me, it's through the air.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a different route. I'm gonna go the other side of the ball. Defensively, we should take advantage. This should be a repeat of what we did to Caleb Williams. The Jaguars' offensive line is ass. Like, we want to talk about our offensive line struggles. Jags fans are in deep depression about their offensive line. Walker Little is, I mean, they had high hopes for him, and they're hoping that he's high or whatever to get off the team, because right now their tackles are turnstiles. And they're struggling offensively on that offensive line. Trevor Lawrence is pressured a lot. Their receivers aren't making enough plays outside of Brian Thomas Jr., who is an exceptional rookie receiver. But Christian Kirk, I think he had 2 catches against Jacksonville. Against Buffalo. And that was more than he had the first 2 games of the season. Evan Ingram is out. Tank Bigsby has the fumbleitis. He can't hold on to the football. Like, they have a lot of issues on that offense and offensive line specifically, where Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, who's been getting pressure every game, is just about getting home. I think they take advantage and get pressure this game and go crazy and get home to Trevor Lawrence and eat him alive. Pause.
Yeah, man, I agree with you there. The Jacksonville Jaguars through 3 games have averaged 13.3 points a game. This is a team that has a quarterback that has in his career 60 touchdowns, 40 interceptions, a 50.25 career quarterback rating, 63 completion percentage, 2,900 passing yards, 84 career passer rating. His numbers are identical to that of Daniel Jones.
What's he 0-8 in his last 8 too?
Yes, actually. They are on a long losing streak. They are down in the dumps. There is a black cloud that really has never left Jacksonville besides that 1 year with Blake Bortles and the defense went crazy. And then the black cloud went right back when they had that fumble recovery from Miles Drack that did not end up being a fumble recovery. It's just never been pretty much for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, again, 13.3 points a game. The Houston Texans are averaging 18.3 points a game. Do y'all believe that this offense, I'm going to say it, do y'all think this offense is a little too dependent on Joe Mixon? Joe Mixon doesn't seem like he's going to be playing this Sunday, possibly. They said he was more week to week. Without Joe Mixon, and I know this is a short sample size. We only got 3 games. I get that. But week 1, 30 carries, $159, looked amazing. The offense, regardless of some of the struggles, overall, I thought they played well compared to the next 2 games where Joe Mixon went down in the Bears game. You weren't doing too much with him when he was playing, but he went down. It is what it is. You didn't really run the ball a lot in the third quarter. He came back, didn't look so hot. Next game, Vikings, we already talked about it. Do y'all really think that maybe we're just a little too dependent on Joe Mixon, or what do you think is the cause for the struggle so far? AD, go ahead.
So I don't think it's a dependency on Joe Mixon. I think that it's a dependency on the big play, the chunk plays. I think that, there's a stat about that Stresson's put up about the, high percentage of, plays over 15 yards or something like that. Or that right there to me is a high dependency on it. And if you go back and watch the games, and I think it's more of a CJ thing. I don't even think it's a Bobby Sloyd thing. I think it's a CJ thing. I think CJ wants the big play. CJ wants to march down the field on 20, 30-yard plays at a time and quick score, get off the field, similar to how he did in Ohio State. That's what they did. They were very, very, relying on chunk plays. And I think at this point, at the beginning of the season with this offense, you have the Nico Collins, you have the Tank Dells, and you have the Stephon Diggs. You want those chunk plays. You want those big plays. You want to get down the field. I think that's the main issue with the offense. As far as the lack of scoring and everything like that. I just think that the dependency on the chunk plays and big plays down the field and not utilizing dink and dunk plays, the short 5-7 yard plays here and there, pass plays, that should open up the running lanes. But go ahead.
No, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, we definitely need to hit more underneath stuff. But to answer your question, Harley, about Mixon, us being super reliant upon him, he obviously is the best back, but I don't think that with him being out means that we're just SOL. I mean, I think if you plug him in against that game against the Vikings, I don't think it goes any different, honestly. For me, it's the thing to remember is he had a great week 1, but we played against a pretty putrid Colts rush defense. Like, we thought our run game was, this and that, which it probably is good when our O-line plays up to snuff, but it's so early. But the next week, Indy goes and plays the Packers, and they get ran through like crazy, So pause. But yeah, so I don't think that it's we're dependent on Mixon. It's really just as far as like the run game goes, it's the O-line, bro. I mean, that last game they got beat physically. Pause. I guess I'm on a roll right now. They got beat, and then the penalties. So yeah, to me, it's on the O-line run blocking more so than it is the actual running back. Like Cam Akers is more than capable. We've seen what he's able to do. He's got great vision. So I think run game can be just fine with Akers. It's just up to the O-line to block it right. And I will say, yeah, so it wasn't only that Minnesota, but like those first 2 games or the next 2 games, Chicago and Minnesota, to me, those are probably by the end of the year 2 top 5 defenses, specifically in the run game. Their front 7 is really good. So as bad as that was, lucky for us, I don't think we'll face, anywhere near that level of front 7s for a while this year.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Comment section's crazy. Anyway, here we go with the Jaguars. I'm going to go ahead and say it, man. The Houston Texans have a bounce back
Richard
game.
Rhodes, what the hell are you talking about?
I don't know, man. No comment there, buddy.
It's unhinged, man. It's unhinged.
No comment there, man. No
I say
comment
nice
at
a lot
all.
on Twitter. Is that what he's saying?
I don't know, man. Well, no, Richard got you. He got an identity thief out there, buddy. That's what's going on, man.
Got a stalker, man.
Yeah, man. Jacksonville Jaguars, Houston Texans get a bounce back game. That's what I think is happening. The Jaguars are going to drop to 0-4. I do believe Doug Peterson instantly becomes on the hot seat and could be in trouble to being fired midway through the season. That's what I think is exactly what's going to happen. The Houston Texans finally break the Jacksonville Jaguars 2024 season. I think what's really big in this conversation is that you could go to 3-1 and not fall to 2-2. You fall to 2-2 and lose. Jaguars are 1-3 now. You don't know what the Colts are going to do. They could still be a game behind or even tied with you in the division. So this is a big swing game, in my opinion, considering the next game is the Buffalo Bills, who just dropped 47 on the Jaguars. And look, the Bills look like a dominating presence that I'm not very excited to see, but I'm also kind of excited to see where we match up with them. But for the Jaguars right now, I'm going to say it, man. 31-17. The Houston Texans get the dub. I'm still going with the 30-plus point train. Screw it. I'm still going with it. They're going to do it sooner or later. They're going to have to drop 30 sooner or later. The Houston Texans dominate. AD, Stressens, AD first. Go ahead, man. What's the prediction?
Domination. I'm expecting nothing less. You come back, you got hit in the mouth, and you go back and you just hit a haymaker. You get hit him with an uppercut, and you just floor him out. All I can think about for those culture people, the Martin episode where he gets knocked out by Tommy Herman. And he falls and he's flying out the ring. That's what the Texans need to do to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They need to knock them the hell out the ring. And I'm expecting
no bell.
Yeah. And I need a blowout. I need a 40-13 win. Forget 30, 40. Give me 40.
Fuck it, 50. Stressens.
That's crazy, bro. Every time we do this, AD, like we have the same score. Mine's 38-13. So we're in the same boat. I think
Ruben 60.
I think CJ throws for 300 plus.
Yes.
At least a couple touchdowns. As you alluded to earlier, I think defense, gets some turnovers, maybe a defensive score, at least getting us the ball to short field. So I think it's a field day for us.
Yep.
Calling you embarrassed, Ruben. They're saying you're embarrassed, brother.
Nah, not embarrassed, boys. I'm in a tremendous amount of pain. The one thing I can tell you, though, is that the Houston Texans are going to get this dub. It's going to be 30-17 Houston Texans. Let me get a pause on that, Richard. Boys, just take care of your teeth, please. Brush every day. Floss. I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but the Houston Texans are gonna win on Sunday. I think me and Harley will be there at the tailgate. If y'all see us there, come say hi. We'll be in the orange lot. I hope AD and Stresses can join us on the tailgate pretty soon.
Yeah. I'll try and link up this Sunday. I'll see if I can get out there early.
I just got to drag the wife along, so you know how that is.
And that's pretty much it, everybody. Appreciate y'all watching the Houston Texans Roundtable. AD, Stressens, let the people know where to find y'all real quick.
Yeah, you can find me on the H-Town Rundown on the internet, on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a website, the htownrundown.org. Follow, like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, and I'm at Texans Commenter on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, and then on Instagram it's at Houston Stressens. And I'm about to drop a website very, very soon. It's super close to being dropped, and I think y'all are gonna like it. It's got a lot of stuff on there: videos, recaps, highlights. I got a store and everything, so it's gonna be dope. It's gonna be HoustonStressens.com, but be on the lookout for that.
As always, y'all can find me at @TheLead_HOU anywhere on social media. I'm on the road to 10,000 subscribers, so please, anybody that wants to subscribe to the channel, wants to find one of the most passionate fans talking Houston sports, I am right here. On on the horizon, I got a little bit of a collab real quick with this guy named Varsity Cooler. Shout out to him on Instagram. I think he's hit up a bunch of other people as well. Dude, it looks really cool. He's got his own cooler duffel bag of NFL teams. One of them's the Houston Texans. So, hey, I'm going to see how this works. I'm going to see how it looks. He sent a few pictures. I'm excited about it. I'll send it to the group chat. And yeah, man, that should be a lot of fun. I hope Texans fans enjoy a nice, cooler duffel bag kind of situation there. I'm excited about this. I want to see more.
Absolutely, man. That's what's up.
Yeah, and then, ladies and gentlemen, just shout out to these three for filling in for me. We'll be back next week to discuss the Houston Texans Week 4 matchup against Jacksonville. Do not forget, guys, this episode was brought to you and powered by BetUS. Take advantage of 150% bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. Shout out to all you guys. We'll see you next week.